Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Guitar Souls podcast, though this one is going to be something a little bit different. You know, we have missed one episode of the Guitar Souls podcast in the last over a year, I believe, and that was because, well, actually, we did film, we did record it, but I was so ill, it wasn't worth listening to. It just definitely wasn't worth listening to, and we found ourselves in that situation again where Mike is so unbelievably ill today, we are not able to get a podcast in, but I still wanted to bring you a podcast, so I thought I would do a bit of an upgrade. And to be fair, while she can't talk about guitars, she knows maybe half as much as Mike knows about guitars.
That's true.
She's at least 3 times as pretty.
Which, that's not true.
Actually,
Mike's so pretty.
To be fair, is useless to anybody who's listening to the podcast. If people aren't watching, then they're probably not getting the benefit of this. It's actually just going to be a shit episode for anyone listening. But I thought it would be better to do an episode anyway. So I have brought in my wonderful girlfriend, Melissa Kelly. So, Melissa, how you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, this is quite exciting. I do feel slightly sort of underprepared because I realise that you guys normally talk about guitars, and I've watched the podcast many times, and sometimes you guys talk about things, and I'm like, what are they talking about? I don't understand, but it's still entertaining. So,
well, with that in mind, I have gone out of my way to kind of do. We talk about a lot of metal on the podcast. Mm-hmm. We're not going to talk about any metal today because I know that's not an area of your expertise. Though it's worth plugging the podcast that we keep talking about doing, which is Does Metal Have Soul? Mm-hmm. I thought this would be the episode. I thought we'd just do it. We'll do Does Metal Have Soul? Okay. But I thought that would require too much pre-listening, and it's 3:00 in the afternoon on the day that the podcast is due to go live. So there just wasn't really time to get that done. But Does Metal Have Soul? The podcast featuring Melissa Kelly and Levi Clay will be coming at some point in the near future, where we get to listen to and talk about heavy metal music from the perspective of somebody that doesn't know anything about metal whatsoever.
Not a jot.
But is an expert in soul and blues and jazz music. So that should be fun. Anyway, we do have a fair amount of topics to talk about today. We've got some fan mail. Obviously, you poor guys have probably written in hoping to hear from Mike, but you're not going to get to do that. It's going to be me and Melissa. We're going to talk about Adele. We're going to talk about the best-selling guitar effects of the year, the best-selling guitars of the year, and something about John Petrucci. Of course, there was a Joe Bonamassa story, but I've thrown that in the bin because fuck Joe Bonamassa.
I really don't like Joe Bonamassa, honestly.
You fit right in.
I mean, yeah.
Okay, let's explore that. Why don't you like Joe Bonamassa?
I think the problem is, and this is not a comment on his talent. You know, there's a lot of, I'm sure you'll all agree, there'll be people that you just don't like for no reason, and Joe Bonamassa is one of them for me. I think as well it ties into the fact that when I first started music and I would go to blues nights to try and get involved in things and learn, because I was turning up and I was a woman with a guitar, a lot of ancient men with no idea what they were doing would go, "No, I'm sorry, this is not for you," and then they'd get up and do a shite Joe Bonamassa impression. I'm like, it's gonna be that.
Yeah. That's kind of tragic. It's sad that like he has to take the burden of his fans on that one. Yeah. But also, no, fair. Because Joe's great. He did actually put out like a Danny Gatton tribute album last year.
Oh yeah, like I'm not for a minute saying, hello Mikey, I'm not for a minute saying that he's not talented or anything. Sure. But he's the poster child for angry men that don't want me in their club.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. So aside from that, did you know? This show is brought to you by our friends over at Ormsby Guitars. We want to remind you guys that there is still time to get involved in the upcoming Run 16 guitars. Those include these incredible hypes available in 5 new colours. That Dragon Burst is absolutely stunning. You can also get your hands on one of the Metal X's, again available in a range of finishes. My personal pick has to be these headless Vs, absolutely outrageously cool. Imagine one of those in an 8-string, I absolutely love these. And finally, the Ando San signature model, available in 6, 7 and 8-string availability. Go and check them out at Ormsby's website right now. This show is also brought to you by our friends over at Rev Amplification, a one-stop shop for all of your tonal needs. Head on over to their website to check out their range of lunchbox amplifiers, both the D20 and G20, 20-watt amplifiers with built-in 2-notes torpedo technology so you can record direct into your computer. If that doesn't suit, you can also check out one of their highly popular G2, 3 and 4 pedals, giving you that trademark Rev tone in a stomp box. Incredible tones, I use these myself. And finally, you may notice in the back of these videos a Rev Generator 120, an absolute masterclass in modern electric guitar tones. Check it out at their site now. So, as always, a huge thanks to, well, actually, Melissa's not really involved in this, my friends and family, mine and Mike's friends and family.
By extension, they're my friends.
That is true. Over at Ormsby Guitars and Rev Amplification. In fact, I don't want to say we there. I'm not going to say we. He's not here, but it's still we. We did a bonus episode earlier last week, which is up for our Buy Me a Coffee fans to check out, where we unboxed and played with and talked about developing technique and things like that, shred guitar and all this on our new Ormsbys. And I have my new Ormsby to hand, so if you could pass that beauty over to me.
Oh, the fear of holding up a brand new guitar and not dinging it on something.
It doesn't matter if you ding it. So I picked up I got the Rusty Cooley in purple. What do you think of it? You like the colour?
I like it. I think it's very Prince of you. The colour.
Yeah. I am planning on doing a video on it talking about how this is the best shred guitar that money can buy, especially for the price. This is cheap compared to a lot of the competition. It is so unbelievably good as a shred guitar instrument. Of course, I'm not going to use this for, playing soul stuff with you. It's not really appropriate for that.
No, it's not.
But it is so good for what it's designed for. I can't picture a better instrument if you want to play shred guitar. The only reason I haven't made that video yet is, one, I can't really shred anymore, and I feel you need to be able to shred to do a video like that. And two, even if I could shred anymore, my opinions on what makes a great shred guitar, not being a very good shred guitar player in 2021, people probably don't really care about my opinions on things like that. You need a little bit of credibility. You
have credibility.
It would be like you sitting here today talking about what the best pickups that you could put in a Strat are. You know what I mean? It's similar in vibe to that. So I will still make that video because I have a lot of experience in the shred field, but I'm just not so great at it now. I guess I'd put it this way: when I was a young shredder, fuck me, would I love to have had something like this? Yeah. It's just absolutely immaculate. I'm not really a Floyd user, but it's a really responsive Floyd, which I like. It's got the EMG pickups in it, which are great. It's multi-scale, so it's got a straight bridge, and the frets fan out the way that way, so it's a minor changing fan. I went for the 6-string version. You can get it in 7-string. There is light scalloping on the top frets here, which is actually really cool. Quite like that. There's a kill switch on the guitar, and it's a beautiful purple. There are 27 frets. No one needs that many frets. And when you're playing that 27th fret, no need to play that fret. My hand is still not even close to touching any of the wood on the cutaway because the cutaway is ridiculous. Neck through construction. It's just it really is a beautiful instrument. So I like it very much. And like I say, I kind of wish that I just had a time machine so I could whiz back to being a 15-year-old and be like, here you go, sir. Aww. Enjoy this. While I am enjoying playing it, it's never going to see the same level of use as it would have done back in the day. So if you are an aspiring shred guitar player and you are looking for a ridiculous shred instrument, I talk about how much I love the Goliath. The Goliath's great. There are lots of headless guitars on the market that will do the job of what the Goliath is doing. It's really lightweight. It plays great, all of that. But there are loads of guitars that are lightweight and play great, etc., etc. I just don't think there's a shred guitar on the market that is as good as this at what it's looking to do. So, there you go.
As beautiful.
It is beautiful. Yeah. I did kind of want it in. I did want it in the blue, but I've been stuck with the purple because the blue was limited. So there you go. Little plug for Ormsby. Not really much to say about Rev at the moment. I will of course be using the Rev on the upcoming gigs, so I can make more of a song and dance about that as those times come. So why don't we crack on with some fan mail?
Ooh.
Get involved with the fan mail.
Fancy.
So first we have Magnus Pearson. He sent in some
Magnus.
pictures with this actually. So
I've just seen the top of the photograph. Like, what's going on here?
It's my face. He is going to show off some of his guitars, but because the pictures are so damn big, I have to scroll through when reading the email. So let's go for this. Hey guys, first of all, I fucking love the show. I'm glued to the screen every Monday, so thanks for making Mondays a bit less useless. Well, another reason to be glued to the screen. Turning 50 years old in 4 months. Promised a Gibson SG, so I'm looking forward to that one quite a bit. I have a few guitars already, but I only have a cheap and cheerful stuff because I love a good bargain and I genuinely never buy anything new. I must say, Gibson SG, or just an SG in general, beautiful instruments. I really, really miss my SG. Kind of like my ethos with a Telecaster, in that the SG is such a simple guitar in terms of its design. 2 pickups thrown into a bit of wood, cheap and cheerful to make, sound great. So, I approve of that one. Anyway, I'm a member of several guitar and gear groups, and the one thing that I've noticed is the massive amount of gear snobbery that is going on. People are constantly shitting on cheaper gear, and every time a beginner asks for advice, they get absolutely idiotic advice. Yeah, bro, you need a $6,000 PRS into a full Mesa rig with a pedal board for a couple of grand, otherwise everything will sound like shit. And I constantly have to stop myself from calling people cunts. I can't understand this attitude when most of the time you can get amazing sounds from cheaper gear if you just take your time and learn to set your sound. Learn the gear that you have first, because buying expensive stuff won't matter if you don't know what you're doing. Am I way off? What do you guys think? Again, love the show. Keep up the good work. Fuck the ones that deserve to get fucked. I'm from Sweden and know fuck all about UK politics. And then included is a picture of my rig with a heavy customized Telecaster. It used to be a China clone with logos and all of that, but I've given it the once over, and well, it's not a clone anymore. So I am going to endeavour to bring that up. What do you think about that as an idea, though?
I mean, the thing is, I do play guitar, and I think one of the things that I came up against when I first started to play guitar, and I would go to jam nights and I would go to sort of table playings where everyone's playing around a table in my local area, and everyone would talk about gear, and I was very privileged in the first couple of years of my career because I was given a very beautiful handmade guitar by a wonderful friend of mine, but the snobbery around it felt like the same kind of snobbery I come up against when I'm talking to other singers or other songwriters. It's just that sort of, oh no, if you're going to be a songwriter and you're going to be taken seriously, you must have the most expensive microphone you can find. You must be using this particular interface. You must be using these particular plugins, blah, blah, blah. And all of that's kind of nonsense to me, because you can have all these wonderful things, but if you don't know how to use them, then they're completely useless to you.
And throwing that aside, if you look back to all of your heroes, if you look back to amazing soul singers from the 60s,
yeah,
they weren't using amazing
God,
gear.
no.
Everything was doing what they could with what they had. And I think it's still the same in music. If you're recording, you're doing the best that you can with what you have.
Yeah.
We have access to a lot more now, but that doesn't mean that just because these things exist, it doesn't mean you have to have everything.
No.
You do the best that you can with what you have. And
also, sorry.
Well, just that point there of like, if you don't know how to use what you have,
Mm-hmm.
having the best gear in the world is absolutely useless if you don't know how to actually use it and get a sound out of it. I've got a Kemper profiling amp here. It's great. I love it. I don't know how to use it though. I've got like 12 amps that I use on it, but I can't to its fullest capabilities. You know, so it's just not there for me.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be very careful. We're going to have a Tom Waits counter, so I don't continuously say Tom Waits throughout this. But, but like, you know, if you look at a lot of Tom Waits albums, granted, there's still a lot of production there, and there's a lot of people getting paid a lot of money to create those albums. However, you know, the one thing that I can have a takeaway from watching some of the stuff that Tom Waits did in the studio was sometimes they were deliberately looking for broken instruments, busted things they could use, especially for things like Bone Machine. He was literally just hitting big sheets of metal. It's kind of back to that again. You can have the best instruments and the best equipment, but that does not make the best music.
It depends what you are looking to do, and of course, if your goal is to have that sound of the best instruments played with the best gear, played the best way, etc., all right, I can maybe see your point, but it's just such a small niche.
Yeah.
I spend, and I'm obviously, like, I'm ridiculously guilty of this. I spend a ridiculous amount of money and have spent a ridiculous amount of money on gear, and I don't need any of it. I just have it because I like it.
Yeah.
I'm in a privileged position in that I have a successful business in music, and therefore I can justify spending money on loads of guitar gear, and that's really nice. But before getting that Strat, which I now consider to be my main thing that I'll be playing for things, my main guitar was that Fender Mexican Telecaster. And as I say, it's a Mexican Telecaster. I've upgraded it with some nicer pickups, etc. But there wasn't this idea of, I need to go out and find the best thing available to me. I'm really into the idea of like vintage gear as well myself.
Yeah.
If I could buy a 53 Telecaster a la Danny Gatton, I would be a very, very, very happy man. But when you look at that as an idea, it's expensive, but in terms of the level of perfection that is inherent with that instrument compared to spending £6,000 on a PRS, it'll be a pile of garbage. That's not why you're buying it. You don't buy an expensive piece of gear like that for that reason. You want, sure, expert craftsmanship is wonderful. That Ormsby is wonderfully crafted, very cheap compared to the PRS. You absolutely don't need to spend $6,000. And people that get caught up in this idea of how much you need to spend, well, and Mike will be disappointed he's not here for this. They've just fallen prey to capitalism. They've just fallen
I'll
prey
be the mic today. That's just capitalism.
They've just fallen prey to marketing and
Yeah.
this need. And obviously, being a piano player now and organ player and just keyboard instruments in general, while there's definitely an element of gear being something that they're trying to market to people, it's nowhere near as successful as it is for guitar players. The marketers have got their claws in guitar players and managed to convince people that you need to keep buying new things. You need more. The only thing, if you've got a guitar, I don't really care what it is. If you've got a guitar, the only thing that you really need to keep buying is new strings for it.
Yeah.
So
even I know that.
Yeah.
Christ.
And yeah, very nice looking Telecaster there. Though saying that, I've never had a great experience with a Bigsby trem on a guitar myself. I love the way they sound, but I always find that they, as far as tuning stability goes, they tend to be not unreliable. But if you were to put everything in a hierarchy of what's the most reliable for tuning and what's the least reliable, a Bigsby is right down at the bottom for me. So yeah. But yeah, very very cool looking guitar, and thank you very much for the email. Also, like seeing that the podcast is featured in the background of everything. So yes, thank you very much, Magnus.
Thank you, Magnus.
We're going to go on to we're actually going to do this one at the end. Let's do David Imrie. So
Hi, David.
David talks about vinyl. So, all right, chaps, I know this is beating a dead horse a bit, but you just wanted to pass comment on some of the remarks made about vinyl in episode 132. Yes, absolutely. The fidelity of vinyl is far worse than just about any other medium. And for me, the main attractions are sentimental and having something tactile, nice to look at and fun to collect.
Sorry.
I just wanted to mention, after Mike commenting on EQing, etc., that as far as I'm aware, there's quite a bit of jiggery pokery required to master tracks to make the most out of the physical limitations of vinyl. And something in creative fields working with those kind of limitations can spur the engineer or artist to produce a more innovative or interesting end product. Do I want to talk about that now? We'll keep going. One interesting thing that I find is the practice of summing down of all lower frequency content to mono, a technique that I find quite intriguing, even in the digital world. I think techniques like this and the inherent ramp off of high-end frequency content, the limited dynamic range, softer transitions of vinyl, blah, 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 vinyl distinct sound, a person could have preferences towards. Yes, all of these are not positive things where fidelity is concerned. Anyone arguing for the fidelity of vinyl versus high-grade ADC, DAC chips is an idiot. And I'm sure this is off the point Levi's making. You make some really interesting points there, David, and actually when... last year, I got Melissa her solo album. I got her a copy of her solo album put onto vinyl for her, and as part of doing that, I had to talk to the guy that originally did the production, the mixing, and the master of it. And my plan was to just fire it onto vinyl as the audio was, but he said, "Let me toy around with the audio a little bit to master it, so it will be a little bit better for vinyl." And I said, to be honest, probably not all that important because we're not going to be listening to it. It's just a nice little piece. It's a nice little gift. But all the points that you make there, David, are absolutely true. I agree with all of those points, but music would need to be made for vinyl for that to be important. Like the decisions that you're making about how you're going to record things, you'd be doing it with vinyl in mind, and vinyl isn't the thing that's in mind. Vinyl is you're making the music and then you go, right, we also need to release a vinyl version of this. So it's not, if someone put out an album and you could only buy it on vinyl, then I'd be looking at that and going, okay, well, maybe they've made a lot of artistic decisions to focus on the medium that this was going out in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I'm always going to err on the side of what David was talking about earlier. It's a tactile thing. It's an experience. You're getting the photography and the experience of, putting it on the record player and all that kind of stuff. I am very much aware that when it comes to actually the sound of your music, it's never going to be the top-notch, beautiful, clear, crisp sound that can be best achieved, but I'm also clunky. I don't want the best sound achieved. I want it to sound rough as balls sometimes.
So I'm going to keep going. Many kids have a tendency of taking high quality recordings of, say, a hip hop track and then listening to it on headphones like Beats that over enhance the bass to the point that the rest of the track is being lost. While we're at it, all of the photos of hip hop artists using Beats in the studio baffles me. It's just a preference at the end of the day. It's almost like these people have absolute gravy in their ears, aren't actually masters of listening to anything. But it's really important to be seen with the trendiest thing.
Absolutely.
And if you're in hip hop, having beats on your ear is trendy because it falls in line with the branding of your entire genre. Going to continue. By the way, I'm still loving and making good use of the Epiphone that I bought off Levi, which again was a cheap guitar. That was David that came over and bought that Les Paul. And anyone remember the guitar I was working on? I still haven't finished the damn thing, but I'm getting closer. Here's an updated photo. There's one more question which I will answer, but look at this for some ridiculous work.
My God.
Yeah, David. I mean, that's absolutely stunning work. Absolutely stunning work. If I'm going to be an asshole and criticize it anyway, because why not? For me, in terms of the work that you've done here, it's absolutely stunning. But nobody is going to deny that it's a replica of a PRS, even down to the headstock. And personally speaking, if I was going to have something like this made, I would want the headstock to differentiate from a PRS in some way, shape, or form. But of course, that one's down to you. I would also hope maybe that you're going to stain that headstock to match the body. I love a matching headstock on a guitar. I like the headstock to match the guitar. But yeah, if the goal was to set out to make something that rivaled a PRS in terms of look, or was comparable to a PRS in terms of look, you've done an excellent job here, man. Should be really, really proud. So well done on that one.
Amazing.
And then the final question he said is, did Levi mention the actual model of the organ that he bought? I did not. Can you tell anyone? Do you know?
I have no idea. I have been I get side seat tickets to this new mania that's going on. I'm very much enjoying it. It's a lovely musical thing. But I've not asked any of those questions.
Sure.
I'm more just listening to Levi playing gospel harmonies on the organ and being like, oh, and singing along to it.
So it's it's a Viscount Legend. I got the Legend live, so it's an electric organ. Tone wheel organs. The Hammond organ is a tone wheel organ. This is what you'd call a clone wheel organ. I got that because it's cost effective, extremely cost effective. I mean, still far more expensive than it needed to be. And they have a little bit of reputation because Joey G. Francesco he's one of the greatest organ players on the scene. Highly recommend people go and check out his album with Danny Gann. Fantastic. And he has a signature model with them. So if he's endorsing the product that they're making, it can't be shit.
Yeah.
Though saying that, I'll keep coming back to this when I've got the Nord here under my fingers and I play the keys on this and I'm like, oh, these feel really nice. And when I play the Viscount Legend, I'm like, these don't feel really nice.
No.
So I would have rather got there's Nord make a Hammond clone. I forget what it's called. Is it the C3 maybe? But it's out of production. It's been out of production for a long time. You cannot find one secondhand for love nor money. And there's no word on if they're going to be making another one similar to that, because I'd love the feel of these keys on my organ. But who knows? If I become a more serious organ player, maybe I'll manage to find one of those in future. Okay, one last one. So this is from Jordan Dane. Hello, Guitar Souls.
Hi, Jordan.
Your Youngblood rant. And we talked about this in the car.
To talk about this.
About perceived miming reminded me of the plenty of other instances of the uninitiated or less musically inclined when they've tried to call out other artists. Plenty of people try and pull the "but it's not plugged in" card when they clearly have a wireless pack on. However, Mr. Youngblood definitely didn't handle it well at all. You also have Ben Wyman, I don't know who this is, who takes that to a whole nother level. He has his wireless pack actually inside the control cavity of his signature guitar, so it always is going to look like he's actually wireless. Meanwhile, there are just some instances where artists are forced to mime, though, like television broadcasts. However, I digress. One primary example that came to mind was Glastonbury with Ed Sheeran. Thoughts on Ed Sheeran?
Not a fan, not even a little bit. I am the square root of not a fan.
Yeah. Personal opinions on that artist aside, Ed Sheeran was accused of using backing tracks and miming when the reality is the mad lad has a huge custom looper system, layered that performance brilliantly. No offense to Levi, but absolutely something worth looking into now that you have your own looper. I've had a looper for 15 years. I use loopers with my students all the time. In addition to that, Katie Tunstall, Elise Trow, I don't know who that is.
I don't know who that is.
Brilliant examples of using loopers live, amazing things with their instruments and pedals. We'll end that one there because there's a little bit about Radiohead, but we don't want to go too off tangent.
Off.
On too much of a tangent.
There we go.
That makes sense. Cracking job, lads, and fuck the Tories. I actually don't mind Ed Sheeran at all. I think he's got some nice ideas. I think he's a great songwriter not in the art sense, but in the sense of, me and Melissa always fight about this. What makes a great songwriter? To me, a great songwriter is somebody that can write something that other people want to listen to. Whereas Melissa's idea of a great songwriter is somebody that can write something that artists can all sniff their farts while listening to.
No. That's
Go
not
on,
even
say
close
it.
to true.
Second time, mention his name.
I shan't. But the thing is, right,
You only get to say it 3 times, and then he'll appear behind you.
I mean, I wish that were true. I would fully be saying his name all the time.
Candyman.
Don't do that. I think with the I know we fight about the songwriting thing. As far as Ed Sheeran goes and the sort of using a looper pedal, I'm actually okay with that. I've actually seen Katie Tunstall a couple of times, and there's definitely been times where I've seen her, and instead of doing that thing she does with Black Horse and the Cherry Tree, she's using a backing track for it. That I'm actually okay with. I'm like, that's a hard thing to set up live, especially if, depending on the setup, the production of the gig you're doing. So I'd forgive that.
I also don't have issues with artists using backing tracks. I just don't take an issue with it. It all just depends. I have an issue with it if people are being misled. But
yes.
Yeah, well, there's no reason to mislead your audience, but your goal is to provide the best possible show to your audience. And if that means using tracks, like, it's not unheard of for bands to be using tracks. Devin Townsend, we both think very highly of Devin Townsend. Oh, we did a little bit of metal today.
Amazing.
And I'm pretty certain he's using track for things. So I don't take issue with that. It's the misrepresenting. It's miming along to your own parts. That old Top of the Pops thing. Though of course that was standard. And that was how people had to do things. I'm sure many bands took major issue with that, and I don't know why television production companies insisted on shit like that. But sometimes you can't argue with people producing content. You just have to do what it is that they want to do, or you lose your opportunity. So, I know what you mean. I did see that about Ed Sheeran, actually, some people laughing at him for miming and using backing tracks and things when he's clearly using a looper. The uninitiated and the less musically inclined should maybe just shut their mouth and not talk about things that they don't know what they're talking about. So there's that. Right, we will come back to Stephen Joseph's email as part of the main story. Let's move on and talk about Reverb has revealed the best-selling electric guitars of 2021. This is interesting and not interesting. Reverb, you're aware of Reverb, the website?
Kind of, yeah.
It's like a secondary reseller, like eBay for guitars.
Yeah. I've never been on it for anything.
Though not all auctions, but yeah. So it's huge for buying and selling things. And I forgot who bought it just recently. It was bought by someone even bigger. I need to check this now. You're supposed to be talking while I'm doing this.
Oh, sorry. I'm like watching you do it. The Reverb. Etsy?
Yeah, Etsy bought Reverb.
Oh, okay. That makes, like I say, I've heard of plenty of times when people have suggested to me when I'm looking for certain bits of gear, go and try Reverb. I never do, because I don't like, I don't do what I'm told. I think that's probably the biggest issue there.
I'll give you that.
But yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've heard plenty about it.
Yeah, they're not the one and only place that people go to buy things, but they sell enough guitars so when they tell you, these are the best selling guitars on our website, well, it is worth taking note of. It's not like Guitar saying these were the most popular things that we sold this year, which still is, useful information, but not, you really want all sales from all places everywhere. So, take from that what you will. So, do we have a list? Here we go. So the entire list of best-selling electrics can be found below. So number 1 is the Fender Player Telecaster. Number 2 is the Fender Player Stratocaster. Number 3 was the PRS Silver Sky John Mayer signature. Number 4, Fender Squier Affinity Telecaster. Number 5, the Fender American Professional 2 Stratocaster. Number 6, the PRS SE Custom 24. Number 7, the Fender American Professional 2 Telecaster. Then we've got a couple of Gibsons, Les Paul Standard 60s, Les Paul Standard 50s. After that, you've got the ESP LTD EC 1000, which is interesting. Squier Affinity Series Stratocaster, Fender American Standard Strat, PRSC 24, Fender American Professional Series Strat, Fender American Ultra Telecaster, the Squier J Mascis Jazzmaster, Squier Classic Vibe 60s Jazzmaster, Fender American Standard Strat, Gibson Les Paul Classic, and Fender Standard Stratocaster. Jesus, that's a lot of Fender.
Oofed. That's more than half.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah, because Squire's Fender as well. So that's a ridiculous amount of Fender. I was surprised, actually, when I first read through this, that there was no Ibanez on here. Ibanez would be the one that I would expect to maybe make a dent on that. A couple of other things to take into consideration with this, though. Reverb obviously has a lot of secondhand stuff.
Sure.
So this will be covering a lot of secondhand sales. So you could look at this and say, okay, the PRS Silver Sky John Mayer signature, the third best-selling guitar on Reverb, that in theory could be the same guitar that has been sold 50 times because someone bought it, played it, thought it was shit, and sold it again.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I didn't even think about that. This is not really the best, then, is it?
No, it's not. It's not the best at all. It's kind of like I always kind of make fun of, and you'll get to do it now as well, always making fun of Rob Chapman at some point on the podcast.
Sure.
And for years and years, it's kind of worked in his favour when people talk about Chapman guitars. They're a relevant brand because you see them for sale all the time. They're everywhere, not just in shops, but they're always for sale on the second-hand market. And while that's good for the brand in that brand awareness, you're constantly seeing the brand being put in front of your face, people skip over the key detail, which is, why are people always selling these guitars? Why do people buy these guitars and sell them? You don't see as many second-hand Mayanez guitars. You don't see as many second-hand Vigier guitars. You don't see as many second-hand Ormsby guitars. They do come up, don't get me wrong, but there are certain brands that you see a lot of second-hand guitars.
Sure.
And to be fair, it doesn't necessarily mean that the quality of the instruments is going to be bad. You see a lot of second-hand Kiesel guitars, and Kiesel make great guitars, but they've fostered a kind of mentality in their customer base where you want to keep buying new instruments. So people buy a guitar, they have it for a year, maybe two, and then they're like, I'm going to sell this and get another Kiesel guitar. Right. So, yeah, same basic idea. But the point is, it's very difficult. I'm surprised that some of those names aren't on here because they are selling a lot of product, especially on the second-hand market. But yeah, Fender are absolutely killing it. And I don't know why that surprises me. Obviously, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, but I mean, speaking as someone who, I'm an acoustic player, I'm not any kind of lead guitarist. It's, in my opinion, and I'm really asking a question here, it's all to do with the music you're playing, of course, and the style that you need to play in, and then the guitar accommodating for that. But also, kind of like the Beats thing, it's going to be a trend as well. So there's going to be guitars that come in and out of trends. And I imagine, the PRS John Mayer one, I mean, I don't understand. I'm not a big John Mayer fan, but, that'll be a trend thing that they're going to be coming in and out all the time.
Yeah. And it is really hard to break. How would you describe this? It's like expectation, be it visual or it's really, again, it's a product of the capitalist society that we live in, right? People are buying that PRS because it says PRS on it and because it says John Mayer on it. And those are things that are desirable to have, right? I've got that Fender, can you stop licking my hand, dog? I've got that Fender Strat just behind your head there. Now that's an Eric Johnson signature. So again, it's got two names attached to it. And it's wonderful. It really is wonderful. But is it wonderful? I don't know. It's impossible to say with a completely unbiased mindset.
Sure.
Because when I play that, am I going to think that it's better than it actually is because it says Fender Custom Shop on it? Am I going to think that it's better than it is because it says Eric Johnson on it? Yeah. Probably.
Yeah.
If someone offered to make me another Strat style guitar that I could play live with you guys, would I take them up on that? Would I go up on stage and play a no-name brand guitar over standing up on stage and playing a Fender? There's so much like back of the head stuff that's very hard to really unpack. I know the answer would be no. I would much rather play that than somebody custom making something for me. Not that that's the right decision. It's years, decades of programming of brands, and that's why Fender are selling so many damn guitars.
Has there ever been a guitar that you've had in recent years that you've sold on because, despite the fact that it did the job that you wanted it to do and it was correct for the style that you were playing, you felt that sort of, oh, these shoes aren't in fashion anymore? Was there any part of that where you sold something because...
No, the opposite. I sold things when they became in fashion.
Ah, okay, because you're smart that way.
No, not because I was looking to make money. I was playing Sur guitars. I had a deal with Sur guitars. Sur makes some of the best guitars in the world. No question about that. but Guthrie Govan plays Suhr guitars, and when fusion started to become really popular in the subculture, if you like, the only fusion player that anybody knew was Guthrie Govan. So everyone was compared to Guthrie Govan. You either played like Guthrie or you didn't play like Guthrie type thing. And people would, play their Suhr guitars, and it didn't matter how much they sounded like Guthrie. Everyone would just be like, "Oh, cool, you sound like Guthrie," when they didn't. And the thing that really bugged me is I would turn up for gigs with my Suhr, which, to be fair, didn't really help because I had the Guthrie Govan signature. Right. But people had already decided how good a player you were before you played a note, and they already decided what you sounded like before you played a note. And I didn't like that mentality. That's when I made the switch to Vigier, because there was less of that, people making assumptions about who you were. So no, I haven't ever. You say sold things because they went out of popularity, right?
Yeah, went out of popularity. You felt it wasn't a trendy thing for you to have for the particular style you were playing. No,
I like my old battered up Mexican Telecaster. I don't care about trendy.
I do. That's actually my favourite one that you've got, to be honest.
So but there's a kind of like a second story that fits nicely in line with this one, and it almost contradicts what we've just read there. Okay. So John Petrucci's Ernie Ball Music Man Majesty model is the second highest selling signature guitar on the planet.
Wow.
John Petrucci's signature 6-string has beaten the likes of Brian May's Red Special and Steve Vai's Ibanez Gem to claim the second spot behind the Gibson Les Paul. A few signature guitars would spring to mind if you are asked to guess the highest selling signature guitar. Of course, the number one spot would unquestionably go to the Gibson Les Paul. I don't think the Gibson Les Paul should be called a signature guitar, although it was made for Les Paul.
Yeah.
Other people have signature Les Pauls. Zakk Wylde had a signature Les Paul. Is that a Zakk Wylde signature or is that a Les Paul signature?
Yeah.
And the version that, you buy a Gibson Les Paul standard, that wasn't the Les Paul that Les Paul himself played. Yeah. So, I'm not crazy on that. It's just named after him rather than it being a signature guitar. Anyway, if you guessed all the above, you'd be wrong, because the answer is, in fact, John Petrucci's Ernie Ball Majesty Music Man electric guitar. So here's the thing, right? Petrucci himself revealed the surprising stat while in conversation with Philip McKnight, who was quizzing the Dream Theater guitar icon about his risky Majesty model, which at the time of its initial release explored new design concepts and challenged the norms of guitar building. I don't think that's true at all. It turned out to be such a wonderful instrument, commented Petrucci, before announcing, "Now we're in a position where these signature guitars are the highest selling signature guitars, only behind the Les Paul, which is mind-blowing to me." So with a stat like that, I just don't know how. Obviously, John will have got that from Music Man, the retailer. The manufacturer. I don't know how they would get that stat. I just don't know that there's a way that they'd get that stat.
And this is from. It's the second best selling. I was going to ask a question there, but there's no way to ask the question because, like you say, there's no way for them.
There's all Music Man could do is tell John how successful his guitar is compared to other Music Man guitars.
Yeah.
Right? So Martin Miller often tells me, that sounds really ridiculous, often tells me, in the past we've talked about how his signature Ibanez performs in relation to the other signature Ibanezes on the market. And there have absolutely been years where his guitar was more successful than the Steve Vai model and more successful than the Paul Gilbert model, etc., which is, astonishing. But there's just no possible way, realistically, that Ibanez could say, also, your guitar sells more than John Petrucci's guitar, because they wouldn't have the stats for that. There's just no way they'd have the stats for that.
It just feels like the kind of thing a person would do if they were in a particular position in their career where something happened and they would say, "Oh, by the way, currently with our company, your guitar is selling more than blah, blah, blah." Yeah. And they go, "Oh, that's absolutely opportunity for us to brag about that."
Yeah.
Bragging rights.
Yeah.
Promo bragging rights.
I would feel better about this if actually no, fuck it, you know what? I would feel better about this if we hadn't just had this fact completely contradicted by the fact that the Squier J Mascis Jazzmaster, which is a signature model, is higher on this list than John Petrucci's signature model.
Yeah.
So are there any other signatures on there? There aren't. Oh no, of course.
John Mayer one.
Okay, so I don't know why I went to that one. Very good point. The John Mayer signature PRI Silver Sky, okay, the third best-selling instrument on Reverb.
Yeah.
And John's guitar doesn't appear anywhere on this list. Mm-hmm. And Music Man would have us believe that the Majesty has sold more than the PRS Silver Sky. Not a chance.
That's not true.
Not a chance. Not a chance. So that I feel it's a little bit. You know how I am about critical thinking, and you have to think logically about things. I don't want to say I think less of John for reeling that stat out, but surely when he was told that, surely in the back of his mind he's like, because this is obviously how my brain works. But how could you know that? There's no possible way you could have that information.
I think it was just a slow news day for John, and they were just like, let's just put this up. That sounds, that's a tasty little number, clickbait to get people to go and have a wee read.
Yeah.
Nah.
So, I don't see it myself. Not really. Are you familiar with the guitar model? Let's bring it up for you, and you give your thoughts on it.
No. When it comes to other guitar models, as I said earlier, I have a handmade Bailey's guitar, which is a small independent Scottish company. I have played a couple of different makes. Ibanez rank on the quite low scale for me, but again, I would say I'm an acoustic player, not an electric player. So I have played a couple of electrics before. I have not played anything $5,500. I mean, it's I like the headstock on that.
Yeah, the 4 and 3.
Yeah, I think that's nice.
So the original one was this.
Mm-hmm.
It had this sort of like shield emblem
in
the middle of it, and everyone kind of made fun of it when it came out, because if you can imagine that on, let's see if we can. Is there one? If they stopped selling it, that would be a shame. If they no, it wouldn't be a shame. People made fun of it, but they called it the shovel because it looked like a shovel.
And he was going for more of a sort of Viking vibe. It does look like a shovel, to be fair. Oh no, John.
Oh, John.
What happened?
The shovel. The Petrucci shovel.
It's not nice, is it?
The Petrucci shovel. Don't know what you were thinking on that one. But yeah, I know it is a really popular guitar. Don't get me wrong; it's definitely a really popular guitar. But I don't buy it. Not only do I not buy it, but we've been presented with statistics from. And while I did acknowledge that Reverb isn't all sales.
Yeah.
If the Petrucci models were huge sellers, you would expect them to also do huge numbers on Reverb. So it's not that I'm saying it's not true, it just doesn't add up for me, and I've also been presented with something that would add to this idea that, well, that's probably not true. So,
Also, the cross-section of guitarists that I happen to be around on a constant basis who are just talking guitars, is rare that one of them will bring his name up, or Majesty
John Petrucci?
Yeah.
Depends what the scene of guitar
not as far
players.
as gear is concerned.
Yeah.
We're talking gear. Nah, rarely, if ever.
He's definitely one of the guitar icons of the last 20 years.
Sure.
But that doesn't really say much. So we're going to do a similar story. The biggest selling effects pedals of 2021 on Reverb. Is there a list for the whole thing? Yeah, they've got a list for the whole thing. And they've gone to the effort of actually putting videos of them in, which is nice. So number one on the best-selling pedal on Reverb of the year is the Robert Keeley compressor, the Compressor Plus, sorry. That surprises me, actually. That surprises me.
Why does that surprise you?
Because most guitarists and musicians don't know what a compressor does, let alone go out and buy an expensive one.
Sure.
I had assumed it would be a tuner. I would assumed it would be like the Boss TU3 or the TC Electronic Polytune, because everyone buys a tuner. You know, everyone loves a tuner. Or, of course, a distortion pedal like the Boss DS1 would be popular.
Actually, yeah, I find that fascinating, because a lot of the guitarists that I've worked with in the past, things like controlling the dynamics of what's happening with their guitar playing and the volume and the overall mix of what's happening on live on stage seems to be quite low down on the effects importance.
Yeah.
On their boards.
I know what compressors do.
Yeah.
I have a beautiful compressor. I've got the Ego compressor from OnePlus.
Fitting,
yeah, very fitting. And I'm building my pedal board at the moment for the upcoming Crows gig and our residency, and I'm still umming and ahhing whether or not I want or need a compressor on the board. You know.
Now, stop me if I'm wrong, but then, because of the style of music we're playing, there's never going to be a huge dynamic shift in what you're playing volume wise and sort of.
No, there is. So the best use, not the best use, a very, very common use for a compressor. I mean, it's squashing the sound, and you control how much squash is happening. But if you think of like digging in hard on funk rhythms,
sure,
taking the really aggressive peaks down a little bit and bringing the soft stuff up a little bit, I want to play around with it and see how useful it is going to be, because we're not really funk. It's soul.
No, it's there's definitely elements of funk, but it is definitely more soul music than anything else. And that's when I kind of think, right, well, you know, as far as digging in goes on soul music, I guess there is some of that, and you want your solos to be louder and what have you, but
get that with a boost pedal.
Yeah,
for solos.
I'm just surprised that's like the very top one.
Yeah, so I'm just going to run through this list. Worth pointing out again, this is Reverb second-hand sales. That could very easily be, and actually I know this all too well from students and people that I've dealt with over the years, right? They buy a compressor pedal because they're told that they need a compressor pedal. They put the compressor pedal on their pedal board, they use it, don't really hear any difference in terms of the sound, and then they sell it. And where would you go to sell it? You go to Reverb.
Yeah.
So that could be the reason this is selling so well on there. Number 2 is the TC Electronic Ditto Looper. I have one of those on my pedal board. Love it. I've been using loopers for years, as we mentioned earlier. Number 3 is the Line 6 HX Stomp. Number 4, the Boss DS1 Distortion. Yeah, told you that would be up there. The Hologram Electronics Microcosm. I have no idea what this is.
No.
It looks quite big. I'm just going to click on this and find out what this is. It's a reverb pedal. It's too big for me for the likes of a reverb pedal. Just looking at it, it's massive. The Proco Rat 2, the MXR M169 Carbon Copy. That would be a delay pedal. I love the MXR Carbon Copy delay, actually. The Boss BD2 Blues Driver. It's a nice pedal. The Strymon Iridium. What is the Strymon Iridium? I don't like the Strymon stuff. It's too expensive. £400. What is it? An overdrive cab sim. Okay, cool. Yeah, no thank you. The Boss SD1 Super Overdrive. Ibanez TS9 Tube Screamer. The Earthquaker Devices Plumes. Is that? Yeah, that's an overdrive pedal. Electro Harmonics OP Amp Big Muff reissue. The TC Electronic Polytune 3, I thought that would be much higher than that. The Boss TU3 Chromatic Tuner, again, thought that would be higher than that. The Dunlop Crybaby Wah, I thought that would be higher than that.
Fantastic name.
The Keeley Caverns Delay Reverb, the JXS Morning Glory V4, the Boss GE7 Graphic Equalizer. Number 27. Number 20 is the Digitech Drop, which is a drop tuning pedal. I'm very confused here. Oh, okay, so they've also listed the top 10 pedals released this year in terms of sales on the site, which I will just mention, actually. Just because I see Earthquaker are number 1 and 2, with the Astral Destiny and the Hazumitas.
You're on your own there.
Maybe. Number 3 and 4 are the Walrus Audio, Mako R1 and Mako ACS1. Way Huge, I'm just listing off brands, really. The Wazacraft, Boss HM2 Wazacraft, SD1 40th anniversary, Universal Audio stuff. Yeah, that's it. So nothing jumps out there to me. I have to mention it because I do like pedals. There's no getting around this fact that I do like pedals. I like sounds. I like making noises.
You do.
I have a lot of pedals everywhere. Drawers of them. They're all over the floor. They're all over the desk. I just pedals are great fun. Yeah, looking forward to getting a pedal board together.
Well, that's obviously part of the joy of it, though, isn't it? Depending on the project that you're working on, you can build something new and build a completely different sound for each time, and it's a little project, isn't it?
You get to be creative.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like having a pedal, and like that orange pedal there. Like, I'm looking at that right now, and all I see is Bill Withers' Lovely Day. That's what that's for.
Ah, okay.
I'll find some other places that I can use it as part of our set, but that's why I bought it, because I wanted that. And I like that. I like being nerdy like that. I could just be one of these wankers that is clever and gets one stomp, like a multi-effects unit.
Sure.
That would be effective. But I like the Lego nature of like, take this
pretty.
off, plop that on. So there's that.
Aesthetics important.
So we are going to move on to the main story, and it's two ways of doing this. I don't know if you saw this, actually. So Adele has managed to get Spotify to take the shuffle button off of album pages.
Oh, okay.
Because she is of the opinion that when artists make an album, we want you to listen to it in the way that we crafted the album.
Sure.
The track listing of the album is important. We will come back to that. We're going to jump in initially though with the fan mail, which I moved over here. Stephen Joseph's bit of fan mail.
Hey, Stephen.
So, can the streaming model be fixed? No. Right, let's go back to Adele.
No.
We'll read this. So, hi, Mike and Levi, long-time listener, first-time emailer. Thank you. I would love to hear your ideas on what can be done to fix the shitty streaming subscription model that Spotify and most other major platforms seem to have in place, so that it not only works for them, but for the artists and fans as well. Like many listeners of the show, I'm in a band, Glasgow-based alt-rock 4-piece band. Shameless plug. Shall we name the band?
Yeah,
I'm
why
kidding.
not?
Of course I'm going to name the band. Black Star Jackals. Go and check them out. And like most other bands, our music is available on all major streaming platforms and nowhere else. Being a relatively new band with a small fan base, we formed in 2019, it makes no sense for us to be forking out money that we don't have on physical copies of our music, not least because we'd struggle to sell it, but primarily because the bulk of our listeners probably don't even own a CD or record player. Absolutely true. We're debating that currently, aren't we, with the Crow stuff. I'm like, well, why don't we just spend some money and we'll get some more Crow CDs made? But then it's like, do people buy CDs anymore?
And it's I'll let you continue, but it's a weird one, and it differs from band to band, genre to genre, all that kind of stuff.
Like the massive majority of artists, we make fuck all money from our streams. However, at this stage, that isn't something that we have an issue with, because chances are that if it was 20 or 30 years ago, a band at our level would be making fuck all from selling our music anyhow. But at least there would be potential to make money off of CDs or whatever in the future, whereas streams don't offer such hope. Fair point. Anyone with an ounce of common sense can see that this business model that likes of Spotify employ isn't sustainable, not least because it is slowly killing off assets that it relies on for content, i.e. the musicians. Spotify themselves have admitted as much and claim that they're actually losing money. Streaming platforms are heading for implosion, surely. They're not. I disagree with that point there. Just to be strictly accurate, when you say that they're killing off the assets that relies on for content, the musicians, they're not. There are more bands now than ever, because it's easier to make a band, it's easier to release music. So there's plenty of music coming out. There's just no money in it. I'm interested to hear your thoughts as to how we can theoretically solve this patently stupid subscription model that allegedly isn't working for the platforms themselves and clearly isn't working for artists. Surely the fact that part of my subscription is used to pay for artists that I've never listened to needs to change. Why only one subscription level? Why not have a basic tier where you get, say, 300 free streams a month, then various levels above that to access more streams with additional costs added accordingly? Or a base fee, 100% of which goes to the platform, and then charge 5p or half a penny. Half a penny per stream on top of that, 100% which is fairly distributed to artists that users have actually listened to. It seems obvious that platforms aren't going to increase the subscription fee, and if they did, they certainly wouldn't be doing it to give the artists a fairer cut. What are your thoughts? Keep up the good work. Fuck the Tories. It's a meaty one, isn't it? And I think that it's worth pointing out. Everyone has to consider the pie, if you like, and there are three people involved in this pie. One is Spotify, one is the musicians, and people forget this, one is the consumer. And all three of those matter, and there has to be an equilibrium between those three things. And what people tend to talk about in the news is it's always artists fighting Spotify, and it's always Spotify telling artists that they're too greedy. And I think that the consumer is left out of this way, way, way too often.
Absolutely.
Because there is no movement between those two parties unless there's movement from the third party, right? I made this point at the end of the podcast last time, and that is this idea that this month for Spotify, I paid £15 for our family plan or whatever it is, £15, and for that I got, let's say, 10 million songs. Next month I'm going to pay £15 for Spotify, and I'm going to get access to 10,020,000 songs because more content has been provided. I'm paying the same amount for more and more every single month. That doesn't work with other streaming platforms. Of course
not.
If you look at something like Netflix, new content gets added, content gets taken away. because it would be impossible for them to license all the music and to pay people if they were just building this archive of things that you had access to without taking stuff away, because the money would just end up getting spread too thinly.
Yeah.
So there is a huge problem there, and the only way to deal with that problem is for the consumer to accept that they need to pay more for the service, but they're not willing to do that. Spotify works because it gives the consumer so much value and convenience.
Yeah.
And that's what they're selling you. They're selling you that convenience and the ease and the ridiculously low price, saying that you need to pay more now for this incredible service that we provide you. The consumer is too greedy for that. It won't happen. They'll just go back to pirating things.
It's unfortunately at this stage, it's bolting the doors after the horses have fled, because I would probably, in that conversation, you're talking about how it's between Spotify, the consumer, and the musicians, and you can't have one without the other in the conversation on how we're going to fix it. I would probably go a little bit further than that. A conversation needs to be had with the consumer, because unfortunately we're now at a stage with music where the value of music and the value of what a musician or a songwriter does means fuck all to the consumer. The consumer doesn't care. The consumer has now been put in a position that's so privileged when it comes to that medium that they won't pay a lot of money for it, because why would they? They've been getting it out the wazoo for so long, so much of it endlessly.
Most Spotify users don't even pay for Spotify. They use Spotify free.
Yeah. So it's like there's currently, in the setup we have between musicians, Spotify, and the consumer, currently there is actually no way to go back. There's no way. Yeah. Something needs to happen in my mind, in the minds of the consumer. I mean, don't get me wrong, I will want to fight Spotify every step of the way in everything they decide, and I will call them dog shit every opportunity that I get. But the fact is, something needs to happen in the minds of the consumer and what they think music is and what value that has. Don't get me wrong, there was a little tiny part of me that when lockdown happened, I was like, ooh, maybe this might be a turn of the tides when consumers realise just on a day-to-day basis how much art they consume and how important that is to their day-to-day sort of mental health, but also just the rhythm of their day and how important it is to them. Some people did, share memes saying that exact same thing and then did fuck all and continue to give Spotify a tenner. But yeah, I think it's way past now a conversation between musicians and Spotify. There's no conversation that can be had, because any musician that's powerful enough to make Spotify change their mind doesn't give a fuck about the small guy getting pennies for their streams. They don't care. They don't care because they're already making the money they need to make. A conversation needs to be had with the consumer by everyone to go, okay, you currently completely undervalued, don't give a fuck about this thing that you use every day to express yourself, to feel calm, to feel happy, to use as background for your joy, to use as background for your sadness, to interact with your friends.
To fuck to.
To fuck to. And you know how many people are going to fuck playlist? What are you going to do without your fuck playlist, Brian? No, I'm sorry. But yeah, so that's... there's not a horse high enough in this situation for me. I'm mad at the consumer, and I am the consumer as well. I will point that out. I'm not sort of saying holier than thou. The consumer at the moment just doesn't give a fuck, and that
they will never have a reason to, and it's that.
No,
yeah.
it's
the horse is long fucking gone.
Oh god, yeah.
You're talking about bolting the stable door after. Not just the horse is gone. The horse is gone. It's run off. It died of old age, and the world has exploded.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, there's no stable anymore. There's just a door left, and you're thinking, shall I lift the door back up? No, it's yeah. I do put a lot of emphasis on the consumer for stuff like this, and I always will, because I am. And I mentioned this, I think, on the podcast last time, that I did that interview with Ashley Jana, the woman that infamously had the big public spat with Spotify at a thing where she was called entitled. And then I did my interview with her and talked about the models exactly like this. How would you feel about paying less for Spotify, let's say $5 a month, and then from there, exactly what's suggested here, like half a penny per stream. How would you be willing to do that, knowing that the money that you would spend on music would vary from month to month depending on how much you're using? And she said no. And it's like, well, I'm sorry, you are the fucking problem then, because I would happily do that because I value music. I have tried. I came to streaming a lot later than most people. I've got a big CD collection in the house, and it's a fraction of what it used to be as well. And I would always buy music, but it's now at the point where I know the right thing to do is to support artists by buying physical media or digitally downloading and purchasing a download, right? But that's also stupid advice for a consumer because it's poor value for money.
Yeah.
That's, it's morally wonderful, but it's ridiculously bad value for money.
Yeah.
And in more and more trying times that we're in now, where the economy's in the toilet and living wages aren't going up, etc. We're getting on politics now. People have less and less disposable income.
Yeah.
I totally understand why most people can't afford to do that. Right? I'm in a position where I could afford to do that a lot of the time, and don't because it's financially it's a poor move to make. I could use that money on something else that I can't just stream on Spotify, like an instructional product or something like that, or a piece of merchandise that's a t-shirt or whatever. All these things, I can't then expect a consumer who works a dead end job and is robbing Peter to pay Paul. Is that the phrase there? I feel that's the phrase.
I think that's the phrase. I'm not sure.
That sounds like the phrase.
English, I don't know.
just balancing credit cards and shit like this in order to not fall into ruin. I can totally understand why people like that don't go, I'm going to pay more. But we just need to accept this idea that if Spotify just keeps adding more and more content every single month, it will fall apart. And the only way that can work is for content to come on and to leave.
Yeah, you're absolutely right as far as that Netflix model of taking away the content. The other thing that I find harrowing is that just recently, perhaps in the past few months, I've been getting targeted advertising. It's obviously just because I have, I listen to Spotify and stuff on my phone. But it's I think it's called Mr. Play. And it's a company not unlike Klarna or ClearPay where they are offering to pay all of your subscriptions, so your Spotify, your Netflix and all the rest of it, up front for you. So for people who are struggling to pay all of their subscriptions, they're going to pay it for you and then you pay them back. I haven't looked into it because it depresses me so utterly because it's like, oh my God, if the consumer currently... I mean, I'm lucky enough not to be in that position. I'm not making fun of anyone who can't do that. But if currently the consumer is now looking to almost buy their huge subscription of Spotify on some form of credit, we are beyond fucked. We are beyond fucked here, people, because that's the next step of the great downfall, because that's going past people going, I think these millions of songs, this huge, vast catalogue is only worth £10 worth of my money. That goes a step further of going, it's actually not because I don't have it, but I still want access to it.
Yeah, it's the entitlement. And that's where I agree with Spotify. It's not the musicians who are entitled. It's that consumers are entitled. We are in a... I do both. I wear both hats, right? I'm going to play the anti-capitalist, but I'm also going to play the pro-capitalist here because you have to be logical about these things, right? I hate entitlement. You are not entitled to other people's work. You are not entitled to other people's art. You are not entitled to the sweat off other people's brows. I'm sorry. Fucking deal with it, right? I don't like the way the business has turned out, and I'm not just talking the music business. I'm talking the film business. I'm talking the years and years ago, I've done this on the podcast before, but Sky Television, the amount of people that were paying £70 a month for Sky TV, even go for the TV license here in the UK, right? The TV license has taken a massive kick in because people are like, oh, I don't need a TV license. I'll just watch stuff on YouTube and I'll have Netflix subscription or Amazon Prime subscription. That was wonderful because there was one alternative. It was like, I'm going to have Netflix and that gives me enough. Whereas now you've got Netflix and Disney Plus and you've got Amazon Prime and you've got HBO Max.
And then the horror film ones.
Yeah, Shudder. And there's all these alternatives. And if you want access to all of them, you're going to need to be paying a lot of money. And this causes a problem because... not because there's anything wrong with that, right? If Disney want to have a streaming service where they put unique content that they are making, what they're doing is they're fighting for your Netflix subscription. They're not necessarily saying you need to have both. They're trying to make you make a decision. Sure, have both, but realistically, we want you to come over to us. People think that they're entitled to it. When The Mandalorian was on Disney Plus, oh, I'm not buying a Disney Plus subscription in order to watch a program that Disney have spent millions and millions and millions of dollars to make.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. I'm just going to pirate it. I shouldn't have to pay in order to see this. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Of course you should have to pay if you want to see it, because it's content that people have spent time and money making, and the industry falls apart unless money is pumped back into it. So I'm not saying that you should have a Prime subscription and a Netflix subscription and a Disney Plus subscription, which is a position I have found myself in again, despite having 2 of those cancelled for the best part of a year.
That's my fault.
Yeah. I'm not saying that you should do that. Think about the content providers that you like and just be a fucking adult.
Yeah.
Pick what you like, stick with the subscription that you like, and don't think that you have a sense of entitlement. Sometimes something I want to watch isn't on Amazon Prime Video, okay? That means that I'll either have to buy it, or I'll have to get a subscription to another streaming service where it is available, or, here's the crazy one, just have to accept the fact that, oh, I can't watch that right now.
Yeah.
Like adults.
But that's just it, though. People don't want that. People don't want the can't. I can't do that right now because I don't have the money. Which is why things like this Mystiplay things are popping up, because nobody believes they should have to wait for anything. Can you imagine? But I don't want to get too nostalgic. And I remember the good old days. But there was a time I remember where when I was really.
You remember when music was invented, don't you?
I remember when there was a time, if there was an album I really, really wanted, first of all, I was going to have to wait for it to come out. And then when it came out, I was going to have to either go down to HMV and buy the CD or wait until I had the money to go down and buy the CD. I could have pirated it, but I was also from a poor background, so there ain't no computer in my house to go and pirate things. But I just think people, yay,
Poverty.
I just don't think people want to wait. And the other side of that is, the entitlement doesn't stop there, as far as film and what have you. We've all done it, I'm sure. Again, I'm not saying I'm somehow better. We've all done that thing at some point in our lives where someone's been paying the subscription for something, taking a bullet for the team, while several other of their mates are also using that. Now, I'm saying if you live in some kind of, lower minimum wage, blah, 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 you can't afford to do these things. That's understandable, but still it's that adult, I can't afford this.
But you see people doing it all the time on Twitter when you're talking about Netflix, like clamping down on people sharing passwords, and people trying to fight them on this, saying, no, motherfucker, I'm going to share passwords to the day I die because that's how it should be. No, motherfucker,
no.
That's not how it should be, because that's not how the business is sustainable. I just had a thought there as well. Dracula is your favourite book, right?
Yeah.
Is that right? Favourite book? Is that a nostalgia thing? Do you remember going to the midnight release when that first came out?
I mean, I did remember that, but I also remembered that time that I cut your head off. Oh no, wait, that's later. Just got me a bit confused.
Oh yeah, that happens in old age.
Shut up, you whore.
You keep lining up, I'll keep knocking them out of the park. So I don't think that there is a solution to this, but here's the mad thing, right? Here's the dystopian future. Here's the nihilist, the cynic in me. Not only do I accept that there's not a solution for this, I also believe that no one will ever accept that there's not a solution for this, and they will just keep running it in until everything falls apart, right? So
absolutely.
It's like climate change.
Like humans. Humans doing what humans do.
We'll just ignore the problem until the problem cannot be avoided any longer.
Yes.
And when it can't be avoided any longer, who fucking knows? Chaos ensues.
Yes, and the other thing as well is if there were any justice in the world, which there isn't, there would be an opposite lockdown. So we'd go through a year and a half where anyone could go anywhere they liked, do anything they liked, no social distancing, but they could not access any music, they could not access any film, they could not access books, nothing for a year and a half. You better believe the whole mental health crisis that the lockdown has created would be much fucking worse if people couldn't do that.
Yeah, unfortunately, the people that, the entitled, they've also been able to eat up this narrative whereby they've been told that it's okay that I consume all the music for free and all the films for free. Well, actually, I don't know how it works for film, but let's go music, because the artist doesn't need to make money from streaming because they get to make money from going out and playing live. Spoilers, there's no money in going out and playing live. There's just no money.
Trust me on that one.
Yeah.
12 years.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah.
No. The other thing as well is like people, a lot of companies, I think like So Far Sessions, who I do really like So Far Sessions. They're a lovely company and they do their best to try and create a place where musicians get paid and they get people who really do listen. But the problem as well is people will go to So Far Sessions, and I've seen them do it on social media. Well, they'll go to So Far Sessions, they'll have a great time, they'll talk about the ticket that they bought, sometimes they'll buy some merchandise, and then they kind of go, well, you know, I don't like to stream very often, I like to go and buy the things, and and that's great, and I'm really proud of you if you do that. But that's now seen as a mark of like, I'm doing someone a massive favour. I'm a sacred person here. And that's so sad. It's so sad that there's just a small collection of people who are like, I like to buy a record sometimes, and that's a minority now. Like, I can name probably on two hands the people I know who do stuff like that.
Most of them listen to this podcast, I think.
Well, we just kill ourselves.
Let's finish this Adele story then. So Adele has persuaded Spotify to take the shuffle button off of all album pages so tracks play in the artist's own order. Singer tweeted, "We don't create albums with so much care and thought into our track listing for no reason. Our art tells a story, and our story should be listened to as we intended. Thank you, Spotify, for listening." The streaming service replied, "Anything for you." A statement later hailed their new premium feature to play the default button. To make play the default button on all albums. Now, I've not checked this obviously, and whether it's rolled out yet or not, who knows. The way they've worded it there is that play will be the default button. Not that you can't shuffle, but play will be default. I would assume that that's default. I guess most people have Spotify on shuffle. I
think shuffle, it automatically goes on to shuffle a lot of the time.
Mine
if
is
you're in
automatically,
playlists.
Yeah. So, but
if you're
because
on albums,
because you have it on shuffle.
Yeah.
If I go on a playlist, it's not on shuffle for me because I'm always listening to things in order. Sure. But I'm just going to interrupt. Sorry, Adele. This is pointless because it's the reason. I understand where you're coming from, right? A lot of thought went into when I put an album out, the track listing. That was important to me. I wanted the ebbs and flows, right? I wanted the big track to be number 7, and the reason I wanted it to be number 7 is I could think of about 20 albums that I absolutely loved where the best song on them was number 7. So I wanted to put the most important song at number 7. Things like that, where you think about this. The song that fades out has to go at the end, you know? Like, sure, I agree with all of these points, Adele. You are right, but you are making music, you are making art for people to consume, and you have to make it in a way that they want to consume. If people want... I'm sorry, the album is dead. People aren't interested in your album, Adele. People will go to your album, they'll find the 3 or 4 singles that you release, they will add them to playlists that they use, and then listen to them on shuffle. And you know what? If someone does want to listen to your album on shuffle, they will just make a playlist of your album and listen to it on shuffle. So I like it. I get it that you're trying to do things to change the industry, but there are so much better ways. You are trying to change you're trying to make your world a little bit better. You could be doing a lot fucking better here.
Yes. This is the I'm not right. I'm gonna try and remain calm while I talk about this. I mean, the thing that I really love about Adele is that, you know, she's had a lot of hardship in her life, a lot of breakups, but she never really talks about it. And I think that's point is, Adele is essentially, like you say, she's making the world a better place musically for her and nobody else. It does not matter. The other thing as well is she is making music for high consumption. It's very much chart music, or at least now with her new album 30, it's going to be music that's listened to by millions and millions of people because it's generic ballads. Let's be fair. It's generic ballads. Don't sit me down, Adele, and try and make out you've made some incredibly thematic concept album. You haven't. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you're making music that's to be consumed by the moral majority, that's fine. But you've created, basically, this is a slow news day. This is what this is. This is someone flexing on their power, and you've used your power for fuck all. You've had the power to do so much more within the music industry, but you used it so that people can't shuffle your album. You pretentious fuck. I mean, all the things you could ask for.
Everything you've said there is true, but it's definitely not a slow news day. I think Spotify changing something because an artist has whinged about it is definitely news. This proves that Spotify can do things.
Of course they can, but they'll only do it for someone who makes them money, and also to someone who does not need any extra help. Yeah. I'm not saying that once you get past a certain point in your career, if the wealth and the fame that you've managed to garner makes you all powerful, you should get nothing else. but you should get nothing else. Adele could buy and sell us all immediately and have us in a cult in an island where we never get to leave. But she, it's garbage nonsense, and it frustrates me because, like you say, it just proves that Spotify can really do anything they want at a click of a button. It just requires the correct person to ask. So fuck all of our drag. It doesn't matter. And yeah, I think here's the thing. Yes, certain albums should be listened to in the correct order. And I am bad. I do put shuffle on and I know it drives you insane. But there are certain albums that absolutely have been created with
any
intention.
album should be listened to in the order, right?
Yes.
Because nobody has got an album, put all their songs together and gone, what order should we put this in? Let's just draw straws.
No, I know. I mean, I do believe that's happened at some point, but that's their jam. But yeah, I just think this is it's insulting again. It's one of those ones where I read and go, yep, we're all doomed. Sorry, guys. No, I mean, we are as far as music's concerned, but who knows? Maybe there'll be a turn of the tide, but this kind of stuff is just,
Who cares as long as I can still make a living writing it out for people. I don't care about cunts recording it. There's plenty of music that's been recorded that I can still spend the rest of my days writing out.
True. So. And I'll continue to get compared to Adele, despite the fact that I sound nothing like her.
But you're a chubby girl. So.
That's what it is. It's like, my ears are painted on and I need you to know that I think you sound like Adele. Because you're both chubby.
Yeah. Which is immensely more frustrating when you consider... I don't get it. Like, with a song like Rolling in the Deep, people love it.
They love it.
You do it as part of your covers set, right? And I don't
get it.
I don't understand it.
I'm not saying it's a bad song. I just don't get it.
It's not. I don't think it's a great song. It's just a song. I think Hello is a much better song. But I think Adam Neal's arrangement of Hello is infinitely better than Adele's version of Hello, right? Why is Rolling in the Deep a popular song? Because the mainstream media made it a popular song.
But it's we can't get into the whole buying consciousness thing, or I'm going to have to lie down in a dark room for 14 years.
That's a great example of it, though, because I just don't think it's a great song. But it was, and I don't know what happened on television last night, but I know there was like an Adele thing on TV where all the famous people were there. And like when you look at that, why has that happened? Well, it's happened because Adele's record label can buy that space. Yeah. And everybody's talking about it because it consumed, primetime television, which is what everybody spends all their time watching. So now everybody is thinking about Adele's album as it comes out. So everybody's going to get, it's all in an investment. And it absolutely falls into that buying consciousness type thing. The reason I bring all this up is because you have, like, I think I Am the Wind is a better song than Rolling in the Deep, but no one's heard it. No. No one will hear it.
No, and no one cares, because the fact of the matter is I can't afford to buy consciousness. I can only go ahead and make things that I think are the best I can possibly make and hope that someone else goes and connects with it. Yeah. I kind of think that that's the way music should be anyway, but I'm a wide-eyed bohemian and I shouldn't be asked my opinion a lot of the time on these things because eat the rich. But, the fact is that like you say, she bought that slot. She's managed to create something as well to go along with her album where she demands something off of Spotify and all these things. It's just the greater beast that is, once you get to a certain level in the music industry, you can just buy fame.
Roll that bitch in some deep puff pastry, chuck her in the oven, we'll be done with her.
I think Adele would be quite tasty.
Yeah. No, not so much anymore. No meat on her bones. Also, did you know this show is brought to you by our friends over at Ormsby Guitars. We want to remind you guys that there is still time to get involved in the upcoming Run 16 guitars. Those include these incredible hypes available in 5 new colours. That Dragon Burst is absolutely stunning. You can also get your hands on one of the Metal X's, again available in a range of finishes. My personal pick has to be these headless V's, absolutely outrageously cool. Imagine one of those in an 8-string, I absolutely love these. And finally, the Ando San signature model, available in 6, 7 and 8-string availability. Go and check them out at Ormsby's website right now. This show is also brought to you by our friends over at Rev Amplification, a one-stop shop for all of your tonal needs. Head on over to their website to check out their range of lunchbox amplifiers, both the D20 and G20, 20-watt amplifiers with built-in 2 notes torpedo technology so you can record direct into your computer. If that doesn't suit, you can also check out one of their highly popular G2, 3 and 4 pedals, giving you that trademark rev tone in a stomp box. Incredible tones, I use these myself. And finally, you may notice in the back of these videos a Rev Generator 120, an absolute masterclass in modern electric guitar tones. Check it out at their site now. So as always, a huge thanks to our friends and family over at Ormsby Guitars and Rev Amplification, and a big sorry to everybody that Mike's not sat here, but I thoroughly enjoyed
Mike.
Melissa being sat here.
Yeah, don't say sorry. It's been great.
Well, just because when Mike, when we missed, did Mike miss an episode? What happened? There was a reason where I'd said to people that I would have you. I gave them the option. Would you rather have just me do a podcast on my own, me and Mike do a podcast? Sorry, me and Mike not do a podcast, so there'd be no podcast, or me and you do a podcast?
Yeah.
And there was a lot more support for just don't do a podcast than
Ouch.
I expected. So Mike's really the star of this podcast. But shock horror, guys, I do all the fucking work. So I'm the one sitting here recording it and editing it and then rendering it and then making thumbnails and uploading it, and So yes, there wouldn't be a podcast without Mike, because on my own it would be rubbish. It's me just talking at myself. It's no one gives a shit about that. But I'm going to do a podcast every week for you guys, no matter what. If Mike's ill, I'm still going to do a podcast. The one podcast we did miss where I was fucking dying, I still did a podcast that week. We did record the podcast.
Okay. Yeah, I remember it now.
I was getting off the back of COVID, and I did record it, and I edited it and everything. And while I was editing it, I was like, "This is garbage. No one should have to listen to or watch this. It's not funny. This is a comedy podcast. We're supposed to make people laugh and think a little bit, and people are just going to feel sympathy for us." So, that's that one. Anyway, please go and give some love, kindness, and support to Ormsby. Check us out on buymeacoffee.com. Buy Micah. I don't know, what does he need right now? Lemsip, is that?
Lemsip.
Strepsils.
Cuddles.
No, he looked really, really rough when I saw him the other day.
Actually.
He looked really, really rough.
So.
Probably don't do that. But you're going to get to do this now. You ready? You ready for this?
What am I doing?
Ready? You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Sure you ready? Melissa.
Oh.
Until next time.
Bye, fuckers.